Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar that will be about validating the AI-based plant counts using the real-world data. And with me today is a guest from University of Georgia, Luan Oliveira. Luan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Luan. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Georgia, and we've done some work with Solvi last year for the AI and counts validation in onions and pecan trees.
Awesome. And today's topic will be exactly that. So if we have a look at the agenda, that's what we're going to cover. So we will start with me doing the presentation where I will talk about the mechanics of AI-based plant counts. And we'll try to explain on fairly high level, but with some technical details on how everything works. And then I will briefly show how it can be done in Solvi's tool called PlantAI. And then after that, Luan will talk about the research study that they have done at the University of Georgia, where they have been validating the accuracy of the AI-based counts in two completely different crops, pecan trees and onions. And then after that, we will have a Q&A session where we will answer any questions that you might have. So during the presentation, you can post your questions in the Q&A tool at the bottom. I think everyone should have access to it. So post your questions there during the presentations, and then when we're done with the presentations, we will pick some questions, and depending on how much time we have, we'll answer as many as possible. All right, and with that, let's get started. First of all, I would like to briefly present myself and Solvi for those who don't know who Solvi is. So Solvi is a web-based service for drone imagery analytics with focus on agriculture, and I'm Igor, founder of Solvi. Started the company back in 2015, and it was, you can say, born out of the collaboration with the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, or in short, SLU, where we've done a pilot project together where we looked into how drone imagery can be processed into valuable insights. And back then, 10 years ago, for those who have been in industry for a long time, know that there were not so many great tools, both on the hardware and software side. So if you were to use a drone, you would typically need to buy parts, assemble it yourself, and then find sensors and mount it in the drones. And there were all sorts of problems that could arise along the way. And the same on the software side. So there were not that many tools that would make it really easy to go from drone images to prescription files or other valuable insights. So that was the idea behind Solvi, and Solvi was officially released back in 2017. And over the years, we have been working closely with our users. In large part, are researchers, both within educational and commercial research, but also agronomists and drone service providers all over the world. So thanks for their feedback. We've been developing tools like plant counts and tools for researchers like zonal statistics. And then 5 years ago, we released PlantAI tool that will be the main topic of today. And today we have users all over the world in over 100 countries using our analytics. So PlantAI is really at the core of our analytics, as it allows users to extract a lot of valuable information. And we'll dive deeper into how it works behind the scenes. But the main concept to understand that with PlantAI, the users can train their own custom AI models and adjust the tool for almost any specific crop, be it cabbage heads, like in this screenshot over here. But it can also be corn, pecan trees, onions, lettuce crops, and many others. And then the second large part of our analytics is called zonal statistics. So that's tools for researchers who work with small plot trials. And with these tools, it's just a matter of a few simple steps where you can create boundaries of the plots and then with a single click can calculate a bunch of different metrics like NDVI indices, any other vegetation index, canopy cover, plant counts, and much more. So that's briefly about Solvi, and let's dive into the main topic of today's webinar and look into how drone-based plant counts with AI work. But first of all, like why even use drone-based plant counts? So if you registered for this webinar, maybe you don't need to be convinced that this is great technology and works great, or maybe you're just considering using it in your work and haven't yet experienced the benefits, but you probably know how tedious and time-consuming the manual counts are. So in production fields, you're only limited to doing counts maybe in the 3 to 4 spots because it takes so much time to walk around the field and do the counts. In the field trials, situation is even worse, where every single plant need to be counted, and it can be across hundreds or even thousands of plots. So there you would need a team of a couple of people working the field trials for hours or even days and counting the plants. And that's like really slow and expensive process, and humans are in general not very good at doing boring tasks over a long time. So as the more you do it, the more risk there is that there will be some errors. On an opposite, if you use drone technology, the workflow would be much simpler. So one person can go out and collect the data over a trial. It can be everything from a small area over the field trial, or it can be a couple of hectares for larger field trials. And a drone flight typically takes maybe half an hour, maybe up to 2 hours if you map a large area and need to swap the batteries. And then you simply go back to the office, upload the images. Stitching of the images into high resolution maps may take another 1 to 2 hours, depending on the size. And then the process of generating plant counts can take maybe another hour or two, depending again on the size of the data. So a single person in a matter of a couple of hours can map and do the counts in fields that can stretch over multiple hectares. But then there are also other benefits of this approach, and it's that if something goes wrong along the way, you still have the data stored in this case in our service that you can always go back to and revisit. So if you down the line notice that some plots maybe have inaccurate counts, you can always open up data sets, see how the tool detected the plants, and if there are any inaccuracies, you can reprocess it and rerun all the numbers. If you just do the counts manually in the field, you are out in the field counting the plants, then a couple of days later, the plants already grow big and there is no chance to go back and redo the work. But then also another benefit is that the completely new metrics are possible to calculate because of the scale at which you can collect the data. For example, things like measuring the height of the crops, like manually, it's also time-consuming and tedious process, and you can only measure maybe 3-4 data points in each plot. With drone imagery, you can measure very accurately each and single plots and get thousands of data points. Same applies for metrics like NDVI or NDRE. So vegetation indices calculated for each plot is just a matter of a few clicks. With drone-based imagery, if you do it manually, that's a much more complicated process. But is it really all that good? And does the drone-based plant counts like work flawlessly? Well, of course, as it is with every technology, there are certain limitations, and drone-based plant counts are no exception to that. So there can be quite complicated cases where actually manual counts can work better. If you have a look at this corn data set with plants that already start growing into each other, algorithms that use either traditional computer vision or machine learning can struggle with cases like this because you simply can't see the individual plants. If you're out in the field, you can uncover the plants and do the counts more accurately. Or there can be other cases with, as we see here in the top left, with trees overlapping each other quite a lot, and it's hard to tell where one tree starts and another one ends. So accuracy may be lower in cases like this. So there are definitely cases where this technology will not produce you 100% accuracy. So it's worth knowing the limitations and using the right tool for the right job. So machine learning is relatively new technology, but back in the day, researchers or software developers would typically use traditional computer vision algorithms to solve this kind of problems. Simple one would be a thresholding technique where you simply use a vegetation index like GLI or excessive green index to find a certain threshold that delineates plants from, for example, soil accurately. And then in cases like when the plants touch each other, for example, it could be round trees that grow into each other, but you still kind of see their shapes somewhat clearly. You could deploy algorithms like watershed segmentation to separate one tree from each other. So there have been techniques and still are techniques to do the counts in a traditional way. But there are huge limitations with that, and that is for this kind of algorithms to work, you would need to tune the specific parameters of each algorithm to a specific case. And in the real world situation, there are so many variations out there where it's simply impossible. So if you make it work perfectly in one data set, then you switch to another one and maybe lighting conditions are different, or maybe there are a lot of weeds in the field, then the algorithm will not work and you will need to, again, spend hours of programming time adjusting it. So these examples are, for example, collected by a single drone pilot in the same country, and you can see how big of variability there can be in the real world condition. But then if you want to deploy this kind of solution across other crops or maybe across multiple regions around the world, that problem becomes almost impossible. And that's where machine learning approach really shines. So rather than hard coding specific algorithms with specific parameters, machine learning works in a way that you feed it many images that capture all these different variations and train an AI model. And we'll dive deeper into that in a few moments. And then the more images and the more variability these images cover, the better model becomes at generalization. So then you can use that model in completely new use cases. And if the data is good and the number of images is sufficient, then the model, in theory, should perform well. And in practice, it will all depend on specific situation. So before we look specifically into how the machine learning pipeline works, I think it's important to be aware of the different tasks that can be done with machine learning. And there are 4 of them that are relevant to agricultural use cases. So the most simple one is called image classification. And that's simply when you give an image to a machine learning model, and then back you get a prediction of what you see in the imagery. So it tells you if there are any clouds in the images, or if there are trees or corn. So it doesn't tell you specifically how many objects there are out there, or where in the image they are, but it just gives you a sense of what we see in the imagery. And this can be, for example, very useful when working with satellite imagery, when you want to sort out images with clouds. So you can feed a model 1,000 images, and in a really quick and efficient way, it will sort out the ones that are with clouds and the ones that are not. But this kind of task is quite limited. So if you want to do a bit more advanced analytics, then you want to use something else. And another visual task that machine learning approach can help with is object detection. So rather than just saying what there is out there in the images, it also can locate objects in the image with quite rough bounding boxes that outline where approximately the object is. And then it, of course, can also, if it's trained properly with classes, it can also tell what kind of object it is. So this can be useful if you want, for example, just to count the objects. Then this approach is good enough, and it will tell you how many objects there are, and then even what kind of object there are in the imagery. And this kind of task can be useful not just for counts, but also, for example, if you would like to measure the distance between the objects. So you could quite easily extract the center point of each tree in this case, and then calculate the distances between them. But that's pretty much it, what you can do with it. The third part is semantic segmentation. So that's when a machine learning not only identifies individual objects, it actually doesn't identify individual objects, it does pixel by pixel classification. So it looks at each pixel in the imagery and surrounding pixels, and then assigns a class to it. And then if you merge all these pixels together, then you can, for example, find out like where the weeds are in the imagery. But it doesn't really make difference between one object and another object. So in case like this, if you have a large blob of weeds, it will detect them as a single large patch, which is good enough for tasks like this. For example, if you want to create a prescription file for spot spraying, you don't really care how many weeds there are. You just want to know where they are in the field and what their like canopy area is, so that you can target them accurately. But this is not very useful if you want to extract, for example, plant level data, because if you apply this to, for example, with trees where one tree grows into each other, it will most likely detect them as one single tree. So for those kind of tasks, there is a fourth type of machine learning task, which is called instance segmentation. So that's the ultimate task and the most heavy one to process and requires more advanced models. So instance segmentation does the combination of object detection and semantic segmentation. So it does detect each tree individually with a bounding box, and then within this bounding box, it also segments out the accurate contours of each tree. And this is really, really valuable type of analytics, because once you have accurate outlines of a tree or onion, you can then extract a lot of different metrics like size of the trees. You can calculate NDRE index of each individual tree without soil around the trees affecting the numbers. You can measure the height of the trees if you have elevation data behind this orthomosaic, and do all sorts of other interesting analytics. So those are the four main segmentation tasks, and we will come back later to them when we actually will look how this can work in practice. So let's have a look at how machine learning actually works. So at the center of it is, of course, as we mentioned, models. And models is just a mathematical function with a million of adjustable parameters. I like to think about it as a black box with a lot of like handles and knobs that you can tweak, and there are like millions of them. So training a model is essentially a perfect combination of those million of different handles so that it performs the way that we would like to. And there are all sorts of different architectures for the model. So from very simple one with just a couple of layers that the training data go through, to models that have like millions or billions of parameters that take a long time to train, and that can provide very good accuracy. So that's the model, and the model is trained with training data. So as I mentioned before, you just feed it the images, and depending on what kind of machine learning task you wanted to accomplish, so be it instance segmentation or object detection, you create this training data in a few different ways. And this process is called annotating. So you create annotations or labels. So for example, for object detection, in this case with corn plants, if you just want to count the corn plants, you would draw the boundary boxes around each plant, and that's what the model will also produce in the end when you run it. If you want to do semantic segmentation and detect weeds, you would then annotate the examples that are used for training in a way that you want them to be detected as well. So you draw accurate polygons around each patch of the weed without bothering about separate instances. And then for instance segmentation, if you want to detect each tree accurately, you do the labeling in the same way. But the most important thing here to understand is, and probably like the single takeaway from this whole session is that the data that you use for model training and the quality of these labels that you create is the one single most important factor that affects the accuracy. So number of images, of course, plays a role, but then also how good the labels are is crucial. So if you annotate some, but not all of them, the quality of the model will degrade quite quickly. And also diversity, of course, matters. So if you want to use the model in a lot of different scenarios, you want also your training data set to contain all these different variations, different light conditions, different varieties, different soil backgrounds with weeds and not weeds, and so on. So how is the model trained once you have the training data? It is actually quite simple process. So you feed it images, and it can be a couple of hundred images, it can be thousands or even millions of images. And you start from scratch, and the model right away tries to predict something, and then it compares to the labels. So it takes a subset of the training data set, and it does the validation on them. And then there are different algorithms to calculate the accuracy of those predictions. And in the very first iteration, the accuracy will be very low, so the error margin will be very high. But based on the results of this error or loss calculation, it will adjust the weights, and then it will just repeat the process. And this loop goes on over and over again and repeats for thousands of times. And models can be trained for days or weeks or even months. And in the beginning, you start here with very high error margin, and then as you train more and more and more, this curve goes down. And the error margin lowers, and then at some point the model stops improving, and that's typically when you would want to stop the training and say, okay, now it's good enough and we can use it. So maybe you then wonder, how many images do I need to train a good model? And the short answer is many if you start from scratch. No one nowadays starts from scratch. So because there is a technique called transfer learning, which is essentially a concept of training an existing model that is already trained on a lot of data. It can be even in completely different domain, but it still can be very useful because one of such examples is ImageNet, which is a data set of annotated data consisting of 40 million images. So there are then open source models trained on this data set already that you can take, and these models typically already are quite good at detecting a lot of different objects. They have learned how to detect the shapes and the contours of the objects and can somewhat accurately detect them. And what you can do then is you can fine-tune this model for your specific domain. And that's actually exactly what we have done in Solvi. So we took one of these models that are available in the open access, and then we took our agricultural data with a lot of different crops and fine-tuned it and created our own agricultural model. And then in the PlantAI tool, the users actually go even step further. So they take our agricultural model and then add a couple of examples, so usually like 2 or 3 or 4 examples, and then fine-tune it further for a specific field. So from the beginning, like to train a model on a data set like ImageNet, it will probably take a month of time and a lot of compute resources. So we can't really do this from scratch every time. Then when we fine-tune this model to agriculture, it probably takes, I don't know, maybe a day or two. But then when our users use our agricultural model that already knows what agricultural crops look like, and then it's just a matter of 5 to 10 minutes to fine-tune it for a very specific use case. And then once you have the model, there is another step that, of course, needs to be run, and that's called inference. So that's essentially when you use the model in your specific case and just want to run it on a data set that the model haven't seen before. And the way it works is that you give the model the images, and it spits out the predictions. So depending on what kind of task you have chosen, it will locate the plants in the imagery, but also it will output the probability score. So that's what these numbers over here show. So essentially how likely the model thinks that that's the object that you want. And you can see in this case, for example, the model was trained on corn plants. So all the detections on the corn plants are a very high score. And then it occasionally can detect the weed as a plant, but the score is much lower. So then those kind of detections can be quite easily filtered out. But that's what essentially is the output of the model. That's where the machine learning part stops. And that can be useful for if you're just interested in counts and simple outputs like that. But if you want to extract more valuable data, like for example, in the research study that Luan has done, then you also want to do a post-processing step and calculate different metrics. So once the model detected, in this case, onions very accurately, you can then just choose what kind of metrics you want to calculate because you know exactly the location and the size of each plant, the outline of each plant. So you can calculate different size metrics like diameter or area, or different vegetation indices for each plant specifically, or even height if the height data is available. So that's it for the theory, and I just wanted to very briefly show what it can look like in practice with our PlantAI tool. So here we have a corn trial, and this is the PlantAI tool. So I will just quickly show what this process looks like when you do it on your own. So when you create a new detection in PlantAI tool, you get these three different options, and those are linked to these specific tasks. So basic counts will use object detection task. Counts with plant level data would use instance segmentation, and weed detection will use semantic segmentation. So you will just choose the task and then create labels. And you do it by simply, for object detection, you would draw the bounding boxes around the different plants. And then once you've done three of those, it suggests the ideal size for the training data. So it throws this rectangle over here. And then you need to annotate everything within this rectangle. There are some help tools like this magic one that I just kicked off, which uses our agricultural model that is already trained on different crops. And it will try to predict the plants within this box. And in cases like this, where the plants are very clearly visible, it can do actually a pretty good job, but you always need to verify and see if there are any inconsistencies and correct them. So once we've done that, we can continue and just use this training data to fine-tune the model for a specific data set and then run the detection, or in other words, the inference. So in this case, I will skip the training because this step takes maybe 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And I will just run this agricultural model as it is, because it seems to be working fairly well in this situation. And then essentially, you can see what the model detects, and maybe you will notice some inaccuracies. And if you do that, you can just go back and add another set of examples and create more labels. And the more data, the more examples you add, the better the accuracy typically becomes. So that's object detection, and then just a few more examples. So this is a data set with weeds. Same thing, semantic segmentation task used in this case. So instead of bounding boxes, we just outlined the patches with weeds. And there is another case there with onions. So if we look at how that's a data set that Luan's team processed. And just real quick, we'll show the examples that they've created. So in this case, they were interested in measuring the diameter of the onion plants. So they used the circle tool to outline accurately the shape of each individual onion plant. And then the instance segmentation task was used to detect then all other onions in the whole field. So that's briefly how it works. I hope it gives you a good understanding. And now we can switch to Luan and hear how this technology performs in the real world condition and about the validation they have done with their research team. Luan, would you like to take over the screen sharing?
Yes, Igor. Before we go for the screen sharing part, if you would like, there are some questions on the Q&A chat for you to answer before I start pulling over these lines.
Okay, I can have a look, but yeah, usually, yeah, if we don't have time, we can answer them after. So let's see what we got here. Is this tool only for crops, or can it work with for weeds, both green on green and green on soil, green on green? Yeah, so as you've seen in the example here, the tool can work in almost any situation. It's actually not limited to agricultural crops. I think we've had some users trying to detect the cows. You can train it on almost anything as long as the training data is good.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll take the rest
Yeah.
of the questions after the sessions.
Can you see my screen there, Igor?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks for staying up, guys. I think we had like 170 people. That's really good. As I told you at the beginning, for those who were not here at the beginning of the presentation, my name is Luan Oliveira. I'm an assistant professor and extension precision ag extension specialist here with the University of Georgia. And when I say extension, I mean that like most of my research is focused on technology that can be applicable to the growers. Okay. And by that said, that's the first slide of my presentation. We did work with the platform that Igor just presented, Solvi. And the title is the automated crop measurements with UAVs. And we evaluated an AI-driven platform for counting and biometric analysis. And there you only have onions on the title of this slide, but we did with onions and pecans. We wanted to test the platform on a really small crop and a big crop that can be seen really easy from drone. Okay. So the objectives of our study was actually to evaluate the performance of this platform, in this case, Solvi, um, in specialty crops, pecan and onion, using UAVs. And we also wanted to verify the accuracy and precision of onion counting. And that's important because if you think about if you're an onion grower and just talking about onion in this case, and you want to see in your field how much of those onions you're putting to one market or how much you're putting to another market because they're split in size. So here in the United States is actually a federal mandate. So a small, medium, jumbo, or colossus. So the grower will know which part of the field or how many jumbo onions he has to sell it to Walmart. Or the other part of smaller onions, he can sell it to fresh market like local or send it to another supermarket brand. Basically, something like that. So we also wanted to verify the potential of onion classification and to explore the possibility of predicting yield based on the data that we collected with the drone. And for that, we used a Mavic 3 multispectral. And the research was done at one of our research centers here at the University of Georgia. We only used RGB, okay, not multispectral data. And in this case, for onions, as you can see, as they're smaller, we flew within the limit of the automated flight for the Mavic, which is 30 feet, 10 to 12 meters more or less. And the pixel size, the GSD that we acquired was 0.13 inches, which is equivalent to more or less 0.33 centimeters per pixel. 75% front and side overlapping. And here you can see an example. Say if you're questioning yourself what a pixel is, so every single image is compiled in thousands of pixels, and every single one of those pixels they carry an information. So that could be color, that could be height, and that helps us to determine the counting and the sizing of those crops. Igor touched base a little bit. So I zoomed in again in that onion, and you see like every single pixel inside of that onion was 0.33 centimeters, which is equivalent to 0.13 inches. What we did, to validate the technology, I was telling Igor that we didn't test the platform itself. We were testing the technology because, as I told you, as my research is applied to farmers, I wanted to know how much is the minimum of annotations that a grower can go inside of the platform, and have a good accuracy or trustability on the results. So we went there, we selected 20 random locations in the field, and then we used a caliper to measure 10 onions inside of those locations. So as you see there on the screen, 1 to 3 until up to 10. So in that case, the onions were undercutted already. So that's an operation that the growers do here right before harvesting. So they were undercut. The roots were separated from the soil, and the tops were down. So the field was pretty clean. That's a common operation that the growers do here in Georgia. Okay. And then we went there, we measured every single onion. And then afterwards, with the drone imagery, we selected 10 square meter plots and we counted by the image every single onion by hand. And we also wanted to know if the counting was accurate. Because if we have an accurate counting and we have a size estimation, we can use those numbers later on for a sort of a yield prediction. And that's something we didn't publish in the paper, but we're running in the background. So let's go to the results. So for counting, we did precision recall, and then we also did the F1 score to see how the precision and recall relationship work. And as far as the coefficient of determination, the correlation between our measured versus the drone estimated, the count was 99% accurate, 99.7% accurate, pretty much 100%. And then precision and recall numbers were really high as well, which tells me that we had very few errors in counting for that specific imagery. Let me go a little bit forward. And this is sizing. As I told you, the most important part for us in this study was the size. And the general, considering the three size classes, medium, jumbo, and colossal, was 78% accurate with a error of more or less 5.2, 5.4, 6.8 millimeters. Why that's important is because if I go one slide further, and I'll go back to this slide in a couple of seconds, the onions, they are classified, as I told you, in small, medium, large, or jumbo, and colossal. But those sizes, they overlap in some sort of. So the small is from 1 to 2.25 inches. And there's an overlapping between small and medium, because medium is from 2 to 3.25. Large medium is from 2.5, so it overlaps more or less here with actually a lot with the medium size, from 2.5 or larger in diameter, and then the large, it overlaps 1/4 inch with the large medium. So there's a lot of overlapping, and I'll go back to the results there. We saw that those 22%, that true 22% that we didn't get for measuring, and the low error overlaps with those overlapping in the classes as well. That's a little complicated to explain, but as we let me go back. As we go back to the results there, and I split in between colossal, jumbo, and medium, our error was pretty much the same as having the classes together, but the coefficient of determination was lower. Okay, so what our results tell us is that, like, if I consider the whole field as an average, I have a good accuracy for measuring those onion bulb sizes in the field. But if I want to split in colossal, jumbo, or medium classes, it doesn't work really well. And the reason why I don't have small here is that we didn't have small onions in that specific field. Let me see more what I can tell you from these results. So there's a limitation on the equipment we're using as well, right? Because we could only achieve, that's a good pixel size, 0.33 centimeters per pixel. But probably if we could have a better drone with a better camera, I'm pretty sure we could have better results as well. And in this case, I didn't tell you from the materials and methods. We use an RTK and trip, so that helped us as well. Further studies with this one would be actually, hey, let's use a better camera, and let's use a better drone. But then let's try to do different pixel sizes, different heights of the drone, different number of annotations, because it's in the paper, but the information is not here. We did 300 annotations for the onions, as Igor showed you in the platform there. So there was more or less 300 annotations. That's the number we felt comfortable on doing so. For like, say, hey, a grower or a farm manager, he would not do like 15,000 annotations as we see people doing fundamental models when they are building something from scratch. Let me see the next slide. So as far as conclusions for the onion work, the platform showed good accuracy in estimating biometric traits, particularly the bulb diameter when compared to the ground truth measurements. And then you can read through it. I'm not going to read like pretty much everything, but from the results, what we took is that we got really good preliminary results. Next steps, as I was telling you, specialty crops is a little bit different market than the row crops. We don't have a tool or machines that can actually harvest the crops and give a real-time assessment of yield, like a yield map for growers. What we did, we got, I think, 200 bulbs. So we measured the size and the weight. And there was actually a good correlation, as you see here, a coefficient of determination of like 89%, which means that as bigger the onion bulbs were, more heavier they were as well. Okay, we used that model right there to put the data set we got from Solvi with the drone to estimate yield in the field. And we got, you see the bulb drone estimated weight versus the bulb size, the ground truth we got, there was a 76% correlation. And this is something we're working right now to actually see if we can create yield maps based on these aerial images by measuring the onions in the fields. The next results, actually, this is from the same study. If you access that paper, we did for automated country counting and also biometrics assessment. So why we did this study? The reason why we did this one is that is because for spraying, the growers, they actually consider the plant height. So if the tree is from a certain range, like from 0 to 25 feet, they use a certain amount of gallons per acre. I think it's 50. And then if the tree is from 50 to 70, is from 25 to 50 feet tall, they use 75 gallons per acre. And then if it's more than 50 feet, they use 100 gallons per acre. This is not from an average. This is like if there is one tree which is over in that field, which is over 50 feet, they're going to use the maximum gallons per acre. We wanted to do this study to actually see if a platform like this would be able to tell the growers the average height in that specific orchard, so the grower can actually take decisions on how much output in chemicals he should use in that specific field. And same again, we used the same drone. At this time, the height was different, right? Here we use it at 230 feet, more or less 60 meters, I would say, and 1 inch of pixel size. So this is a little bit bigger than, not actually a lot bigger than we use in the onions. That's 2.54 centimeters. Same overlapping. And this one here, I have a video, a quick video showing you what we did in the platform. So for the height, we had actually to go there and using either a pole or lifter to measure using a measuring tape. As you can see there, it's not perfect, right? Like there are some burnt branches of the tree that are being counted as trees. And it goes back to the limitation. We didn't want to actually do a lot of annotations because that's not the point. The point is to use the minimum of annotations to show the grower that he would not be a whole day in front of a computer circling trees to do the job. So let me see. I think I forgot the number we did this one in the paper, but those were the annotations we made, the examples we gave to the software. And as you see there, we use it what we call mature, we use it mid-age, and we use it young trees as examples. And those examples, they are from 0 to 25 feet to 25 to 50 feet and over 50 feet trees. We found that perfect field with different ages of trees. And here are the results. So this is height for counting, the same, like 99, 98, 97% accuracy. So this is estimated height. Pretty much same thing as you see there, 98% accuracy if I consider all the trees, all the tree ages. But when I split them up, I don't know if I'm gonna have the, I don't know, yeah. When I split them up in between mature, mid-age, or younger, can you see my mouse there, Igor? Let me put a laser pointer here. Yeah, that's better. So for mature, we got an accuracy of 81% of R square. And then my error was more or less 1.14 meters. For the mid-age, which are the ones from 25 to 50 feet trees, 90% accuracy, and the error was half of the mature, so more or less half a meter. And here at the younger trees, the error was the accuracy was lower, and we got more error. So that's another limitation, is because let's go back to the onions a little bit. At 10 meters, flying that drone at 10 meters, it takes a lot of time. Okay. So for a small field like that one, like an acre field, like half an acre field, we're talking about a 35, 40-minute flight. So that's by itself is a battery worth of a Mavic 3 multispectral already. Okay. For the tree ones, as we had, we had a big field, and the trees are bigger as well. They're not bulb size or like onion bulbs that we're trying to count. We could actually we flew higher, so the pixel size was already bigger. And if I go back to that first imagery, or actually the video here, you're going to be able to see better. We can barely see the younger trees from this image. Yes, if I zoom in a little bit, that's going to work out. But the pixel size was the limiting factor that affected the accuracy of estimating the height of these young trees right there. And pretty much the same happened with canopy area. Okay, you see, like for the canopy area side, like the accuracy was higher. The way we validated this, the ground truth measurements, we actually had to go to Metashape, which is a software, and we circled by hand like every single branch. So the comparison in the automated measurements from Solvi to Metashape was 99% on mature and mid-age trees. But for the younger trees, we got like a lower coefficient of determination. We got a lower error in comparison with the two others, but the accuracy of that measurement was not that high. With that said, I'll thank you. This research was sponsored by the Georgia Pecan Commission. Growers actually want to know this, and for the Vidayan Committee as well. And I'll be open to any questions if you guys have it at the Q&A.
All right, thank you, Luan. So I will
stop sharing here.
Yeah, take over the presentation here. And just one thing I would like to mention. So yeah, now we can start the Q&A session, and we've got quite a few questions there, so we'll try to walk through them. But I would also like to mention that we will be hosting a deep dive into PlantAI tool, so more like of a product demo. So if you want to see how it works in more detail, then you want to join this session. So that's same date next week at the same time. So I will send tomorrow link to the recording first of all, but then also the invitation to this one. All right, so let's see what questions we've
Good
got.
question, guys.
Yeah, so maybe you want Luan also to have a look and see if you can pick any that are relevant.
Yeah,
You.
we have more than 30 questions. Oh, actually 28. So that's
Yeah, so I'll just
okay. So
stop.
let me.
Mhm. I'll just stop picking. I looked at a few of them. So is Solvi
Mm,
able to handle LiDAR data? It should be precise for plant height. So we don't process raw LiDAR data, but we do support upload of custom DSMs. So if you want to process LiDAR data in the GeoTerra, generate a GeoTIFF as a DSM in GeoTIFF format, then you can upload it to Solvi and use for height measurements. And I know some of our clients working in field trials do exactly that. So that can provide more accurate height measurements. Then there is another one that is quite common question. What is the optimal height for counting plants? 15, 20 centimeters tall. We've done an article actually on that topic on our blog. So how to estimate the required altitude for the flight. And what we've noticed is that for relatively good accuracy of the counts, you want the plants to be represented by 20 to 30 pixels in the imagery. Which means that you can use a rough formula to calculate the target GSD, which is divide the plant diameter. So you want to look at diameter, not the height of the plants, because the images are from top-down perspective. So how big the plants are in the image in the real world, say 20 centimeters, and then divide them by 20 pixels, and then you will get the target GSD. So in that case, it will be 1 centimeter per pixel. If you want more accuracy, like for example, in case with onions, like if you're like looking at very fine margins of like just 5 millimeters accuracy, you really want to make sure that the resolution of the image is good enough as well. So then you might want to divide it by 30 pixels so that each onion or each plant is represented by more pixel data. All right. Have you found any questions, Luan, that you would like to
actually,
address?
all of them are for you, Igor.
Okay.
They're related to the. I'm going over here. Like they're more related to the capabilities of Solvi, and I'm limited to the studies we did. So
Okay. Okay, so there was one question also about the use of our GCP, so RTK. Um, so did you use any of those, Luan, in your research or?
actually, GCPs, as I tell people, they you can use them, but they're more important when you're doing temporal analysis, right? Like if you do a flight here and you're comparing to the flight in the future, so you can have the field stitched in the same place always. We didn't use GCPs in our study because it was just one flight.
Right. But I can mention that the spatial accuracy becomes important if you want, for example, to do spot spraying. So if you want to detect very small patches of weeds,
Yeah.
say like half a meter, and then create a prescription file, which you can do in Solve as well, by the way, and then put into sprayer, then you want the accuracy of the map to be like on centimeter level. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the sprayer will miss that. All right. Is this method accurate for banana trees? Yeah, for sure, as long as imagery is good enough. And I think there were a couple of similar questions, like if this can be used in forestry or non-agricultural use cases. So the models can be fine-tuned on almost any type of objects as long as you can see the individual objects in the imagery. So essentially, if you look at the image and can say this is one banana tree, this is another one, then you can create a good training data set and fine-tune the model for almost any specific use case.
There's one question for me here,
Yep.
Igor, which
Go
is
ahead.
how can young trees have lower accuracy than mid-aged trees? So that was from Rodion Herrera. So Rodion, that was what explained and the presentation. So the resolution of the younger trees was lower in comparison than the mid-age ones. So that's why we got lower accuracy on that specific counting.
Okay, awesome. So there was question on is there a difference between counting AI with RGB or multispectral images? So in Solvi you can do both, although for multispectral we actually will use for now just the visual bands, so red, green, and blue. Or if you fly with Mavic 3M, we will use red, green, and then red again. And that has to do with architecture of the models that we currently use. And we haven't done a lot of tests with using like NAR or red edge bands. Like in theory, it might be helpful because when you look at the images, often the vegetation stands out much more clearly in those bands. But to
I'm
be
gonna
honest,
tell
like
you this, Igor. We didn't get a good accuracy when
with
using the
multispectral,
multispectral. Yes,
mhm,
the RGB was better
better. Yeah, you mhm.
for training the model and identification.
Right, right. So yeah, usually that's because the model, our base model that we have trained already is trained on RGB data, and then the model that it uses itself, one of those very large models that are available for everyone, that's also usually used trained on RGB data. So probably that's why. But that's an interesting area, and maybe there is a research available on that topic. So there is a question from Josue if there have been any advancement in algorithms for detecting insects or insect damage, as well as for detecting foliar diseases in agricultural crops. Have you done any work in that area, Luan?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
Igor. I have actually this is Nicholas Rank had a question, and that's also a question from myself. Can we
Mhm.
process LiDAR data using Solvi?
Yeah, as I mentioned, not raw LiDAR data, so you would need to
Okay,
process it into a GeoTIFF, and then you can upload it to Solvi.
okay.
So on diseases, so I think like technically it's possible with this technology. You just need much higher resolution imagery, and I think there are companies offering analytics specifically for that. So then you probably don't want to fly like with overlap at 12 meters. You want to go lower, and then it's very hard to cover larger areas. So solutions that I've seen is like you take sample images in specific spots and it can be like just above the crops, and then you can detect very fine details like insects or different type of diseases. And then there is
Okay,
a
so there
like
was a question for
Mhm.
me real quick. Yeah, Luan, does your research group still maintain relationships with researchers in Brazil or a startup in São Paulo? Would love to reach out. Rafael, yes. I'm from Brazil and I do a lot of research with Brazilian researchers. So at the end of my presentation, you had a QR code. If not, my email address is luan@uga.edu. It's pretty easy once you reach
Awesome.
out.
It's actually I think I'm sharing the screen, so the Luan's email address is over there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I just saw it.
Hmm. So can we apply a model trained on one field to another field? So at the moment, no, but something that we're working on is to start offering custom models. So clients who already have a lot of examples from different fields, different locations, will be able to take this data and train their own custom models, for example, say only for corn, and then deploy it across other data sets. Uh, okay, anything else that
High
we can?
resolution cameras. That's a question I also have, Igor. We use the Mavic. Um, and then Tom Tripp had this question. Are you aware of any research using higher res cameras for analysis, like a more resolution than the Mavic 3M?
Not specifically, but yeah, for sure that's an opportunity. So there are 61 megapixels cameras. So if you want to go higher resolution, you can get Matrice 3 or 400 and then mount ZenMuse P1. That's what I've seen other clients doing. Then There are even higher end cameras like phase one that goes like above 100 megapixels. They're quite costly though. So yeah, you can definitely use more high end cameras to achieve better resolution and better accuracy. All right, so there are quite a few questions here as well, so I don't think we will be able to answer all of them, and we're kind of running out of time.
42 questions. That's really good. Thank you guys for
Yeah,
interacting.
that's great, but we will get those questions recorded after the webinar, so we will try to get back to you guys to as many as possible. But with that, I would like to thank you for everyone for taking your time and for joining our webinar. And yeah, have the great rest of the day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Luan, for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.